Hello, everyone. My name is Katie Wright, and you are listening to Divine Shine, Mediumship, and Tarot. And this is my new channel where I'm posting all things Reiki, spirituality, mediumship, tarot, all kinds of stuff. So, today, what I want to talk to you about is how Reiki can help with physical healing and kind of my experiences with Reiki and mediumship, some of my experiences with physical healing. So I have a few of them. I'm going to not talk about all of them in detail, but a few of them in detail. So first, I wanted to explain that how Reiki works, as I understand it, is when the person who's practicing Reiki channels universal energy, and that universal energy is channeled through and delivered to the person who's receiving the Reiki, and that is where the healing comes from. Okay, so there's a little bit more to it when you actually go through the attunement, but that's kind of the gist of it. So in my experiences, two experiences that I'm going to briefly touch on, not go into too much, are I already told you about an Achilles heel tendon that I worked on in my first video. So I helped with healing, in the healing process with my friend who had the Achilles rupture. I also worked on my daughter's father, my ex-husband, and we're still friends. Anyways, so I worked on him. He had a kidney stone, and so he hadn't passed it yet, and he was in a lot of pain. And I was like, just lay on the table and let me try this on you. So I worked on him, and then I got a call later that night that said I went to the hospital and I passed the stone and blah, blah, blah. So that was something that there's no coincidences, right? So I feel like I played a part in that, whether I did or not. I'm calling it. And then also my friend, one of my clients, when I was heavily into personal training, she had when I worked on her, she actually said it was painful. And this is the first person that I've ever heard describe Reiki as painful. You can, as a receiver of Reiki, and when you're giving Reiki, it's normal to feel heat, tingling, pressure. You can see colors sometimes. If you hear colors, that's a problem. But no, I'm just kidding. That's a stupid joke. It's like one of my dumb mom jokes that I make all the time. But anyways, so it's normal to feel those sensations as a receiver and as a giver. However, I've never heard someone describe it as painful, and that was hard to hear because I don't want to ever hurt anyone. But she did have an ovarian cyst, and it was very painful in that area during the process. And she said that she was seeking medical care to figure out how to remedy that situation, and it actually popped the ovarian cyst, which was okay. That's what needed to happen, but it just came as a little bit of a surprise. So those are my quick stories that I wanted to go over. And now we are going to talk about a few others. So starting with my client, I was working on her. I was personal training. She had tennis elbow. She was in a lot of pain. And at the end of our session, I said, "Hey, Genevieve, do you mind if I try Reiki on you?" And she's like, "Sure, no problem. I'm going to use the restroom." I'm like, "Okay, meet me on the floor, on the functional area of the gym, and we'll sit on the floor and I'll look like a crazy person doing Reiki on you." And she's like, "Okay, sounds good." So she went to the bathroom. So this is an example of when it could be used, right? So she had an issue, she had a problem. I was bringing Reiki into the connection of the two of us because of a physical problem. So you don't have to go to Reiki for a spiritual problem or a spiritual something to do with the spiritual sense. It can just strictly be for physical, and I don't have to bring mediumship and all that stuff into it because that's not going to be for everyone, and that's fine. That's fine with me. Whatever you need is what I want to help in assisting you with, right? So anyways, she goes to the bathroom. I'm already sitting on the floor. She comes back. She sits down, and I start with the hand positions, and I have my hands over, not touching, Reiki's non-touch, but over her eyes. And I said, okay, I feel like I'm being blocked. Like I feel like I'm being held back, and I feel like I don't have access to something. I felt like, what is the word I'm trying to think of right now? Like I'm being restricted. I felt like I was being restricted, and it wasn't a scary feeling or a bad feeling. It was just, that's what it is. I was being restricted. And then I said, and I see you, client, I see you behind this plane of glass, and it's not like you're trapped there. Like you could get out, but you're not in any danger. But I see you there, and it's just, you're behind this glass. And she's like, okay, it's interesting. Does it have to be removed in order for us to continue? And I was like, did you put it there? And she's like, yeah, when I went to the bathroom, I put up my protective sheet of glass. And I was like, okay. So maybe this is a different topic. I should have saved this for blocking and how that could happen, but maybe I'll tell the story again. Anyways, so that's a fun story I like to tell. It's not a story. It's a fun experience that I had. And it started with us seeking physical help. Now, if I actually help, I feel like after that, after you know that the person is blocking you, for me, as trying to offer this service as something of help, well, if you're not going to allow me to help you, then it's not going to help you, right? So I'm not going to waste my time and my energy by giving to you when you truly don't want it. And that's totally fine. It's not for everyone. And so you don't have to if you don't want it. The second one that I wanted to talk about is, okay, so I had a mutual friend, and one of their family members, his name was Ian. He was in a really bad accident, and he had like complete knee reconstruction, like multiple times. He had surgery, and he was just really, had been months, and there was a lot of damage done to the knee, and he was willing to try an alternative style of medicine. So it was his cousin. I was friends with her. She recommended him to me. So I worked with him. He's laying on the table, and I'm closing my eyes. And as I have my eyes closed, I notice in the left corner of the room, I feel like through closed eyes, like as you can too, sense that there was an illumination in the room. Okay. Didn't think much of it because crazy crap shit all happens all the time. So I just continued to work. And then when we were done, there was a lot of heat in that session. I noticed when we were done, I finished, and I asked him how his experience was. And he's like, did you see that? And I was like, I think I saw something, but I don't know. What did you see? And he's like, well, I opened up my eyes and my whole leg was lit up. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool. So that's an example of physical healing and an experience that I had specifically with that. And then I've got two more for you. So I was working on a friend that I worked with. He's a trainer with me. Oops. I didn't need that pen anyways. His name is Randy. He was a former Marine. And I had, just over the course of being myself and as coworkers, I mentioned like, oh, I do this weird thing called Reiki. And so he's like, oh, I want to try it. So I tried it one day on him, and he didn't tell me he had any injuries. So I kind of just scanned his body first, and then I hovered over the left knee, which I felt a difference in the energy field. So when there's a difference, that means that something is different in that area, right? So I said, did you have an injury in your left knee? And he said yes. And I was like, okay. And then I just started to receive all this information. And when I am receiving, it's kind of like I'm in a dream state where you don't remember everything unless you write it down or have someone to kind of corroborate your story, or it's just so, profound that there's no way you could forget. But this is kind of earlier in my experiences, so not that it wasn't meaningful, they're all meaningful, but the specifics of the situation I can't exactly remember. But what I remember is I'm hovering over his knee, and I begin to receive this story, or receive like something that happened to him, and I just relayed what I felt and what I saw. And this was kind of the first time I did this with the physical healing part. So I was like, okay, I feel like you were around a lot of other people when this happened. Is this true? Yes. Okay. I feel like the situation wasn't handled in a way that made you feel safe or comfortable. And he confirmed that, yes. I'm like, okay, I feel like the person, the leadership in, I felt like he was a Marine, like he said. So this was either, I know that he was deployed, but they also do a lot of training stuff. And, I don't know exactly where it was, but I feel like this was something to do with your work, where you were in front of other people, other men, and there was a person in charge, and whoever this person in charge was handled the situation that happened incorrectly in a way that minimized the impact of whatever happened to you. And whereas it should have been treated to a more like, it should have been treated like, oh, this was an accident. This was something bad that happened. I need to seek medical care. I need to document this. I need to whatever. It was kind of just brushed off and laughed off. And then other people around you kind of followed in that suit. Wait, was that true? I can't remember. Actually, I'm thinking it was the opposite, but that part doesn't really matter. I mean, none of it really matters per se, because I can't remember the exact. I remember how I felt and what I was describing, but on the other side, when he corroborated the story, when he told me back what actually happened, I don't remember that specific part, because that part didn't come from me. What came from me was the feeling and the intention and what happened at that time. So, and so I had no idea what I'm doing. And I'm like, what? I'm getting this information. So Reiki is, practiced under the Ayurvedic principle that everything in the body is a physical manifestation of something mental, spiritual, or emotional. So this accident happened to him 10 years previously, okay? But during the accident, he experienced emotions that were unpleasant, that were unwanted, right? They were negative emotions because of trauma that happened during the time of the accident. So not only does the physical pain get stored in his body at the time of the event, during the event, and then as it heals after, but can continue to linger on if there is also emotional, mental, or spiritual inconsistencies, pain, unresolved issues, unprocessed stuff that happens during the time of the accident or during the time of the injury. That's what I'm thinking in my head. Well, that is what Reiki is. That is the Ayurvedic principle. And so if we're able to unlock the reasons why, if we're able to take a step back from the actual moment, have some time and space, and have a broader perspective and look at the situation from a higher perspective, and now we have knowledge of what actually happened, because sometimes when you're so thick in the middle of things, you can't see the forest through the trees, right? So take a bigger step back, and now you're able to have knowledge, which knowledge is power. Having knowledge is absolute power, right? Because if you know everything, then there's nothing else to know. Then there's no other level to go to. And not saying that I don't, or we don't have, we all have different levels to go to. But, maybe source energy, who's all healing, all omnipotent, all knowing, has that ability, which is why source is also able to be healing, right? Sorry, I have a lot to say on this, so I'm kind of getting off track. But so I know that Reiki is built on this Ayurvedic principle. I know that I'm hovering over an injury, that I'm receiving information about the time of the actual accident. So I put it together that because at this point in my journey, in my Reiki journey, in my mediumship journey, I am asking why. Why am I doing my hair and I'm seeing this strange image of this man that I barely know? I know his sister, right? This is a different story that I talk about in video 2. Why am I having this image of him at school when he was a child stuttering? Why? So what I didn't tell you in that video, and what I wanted to tell you, is that was the first time I was like, that was really weird. Why did that happen? There has to be a reason why. Why am I receiving this information, right? And so after that happened, like maybe some time had passed, like a week had passed, and I reached out to his sister because I wanted to contact him to find out what was the key thing that he took away from me delivering that message to him. And he said that he was going through something in his life at the present moment that required a lot of patience, dedication, focus, and patience, dedication, and focus. And that story reminded him of a time where he had to overcome something difficult, where he had to enact exactly those things. And if you look at that video again, you'll hone in on what I said. And what I said was, I saw you so patient and determined and focused and dedicated. And he said that what he was going through in the present moment, he needed those qualities, and he was reminded of a time in the past where he had the ability to overcome something difficult. So that kind of flashed in my mind as I'm receiving this message, hovering over this person's knee. I'm getting a flashback to when the injury accidentally happened. He's still having residual pain 10 years later. And I'm seeing in this scene, because I'm watching it, I'm seeing how it was detriment. It was a scary thing to be in that accident, because the way that it was treated, the way that it was handled, was not correct in the care that he should have received, and in the attitudes, feelings, opinions of the people surrounding him, of power, and the people surrounding him. So what I thought was, okay, well, maybe he's being brought back to that scene because that needs to change in order for him to change the current physical ailment that's bothering him right now. So I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but what I did was I got his higher self, himself now, to talk to his younger self then. So I said, close your eyes. We're going to go back to the scene of the accident. So I want you to imagine what it looked like. I want you to put yourself there. I want you to put the key people who were around you there. And I want you to go there and observe from a higher perspective, from your higher self, you as your younger self in the scene. I want you to feel your feelings, feel what happened, okay? And I want you to then I wait, okay, put yourself there, blah, blah, blah. And then I want you to put your hand on your shoulder and tell yourself that it is okay and that you recognize what happened. You are aware that it was not a positive scene. You realize that it was hurtful. You realize all the things that, looking back now, it is okay to feel, right? Because now you're in a safer place. At the moment, there's a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of pain. There was a lot of hurt, and so I want you to tell yourself that, confirm and validate what you felt was real, and tell yourself it's going to be okay. So that's what we did. And that was a cool experience. I mean, sucks that you had to go through it, but so that was how Reiki can help you with physical stuff. So that being said, I'm working at a different gym now. And one of these little kids, I call them kids because they're younger, like they work the front desk or whatever, or he's a trainer, I can't remember. I don't even remember his name. Anyways, he had a shoulder thing. I always saw him like doing his shoulder, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what happened? He's like, oh, I hurt my shoulder like years ago and I had surgery and, it's just never been the same. And I was like, oh, I can help you with that. So I'm all eager beaver because I'm trying to work on everyone to, develop my skills. So we went into the group X studio. He laid down on the floor and I started Reiki on him. And again, I already knew it was his shoulder, but I felt his energy field. I felt like it was different in that area and hovered over that area. And I started to receive the feelings surrounding the time of the accident. And so I said, I feel like this is like a big deal for you in this moment. It's a big deal. Like you were awaiting this moment. I knew that there was a lot of people there, and I do know the backstory, so I'll tell you that. And then you get hurt, and then you felt like disappointed because all that you've ever known. So I knew that he played baseball, right? So he told me that this injury happened during a game. I think he was in high school. Yeah, he was in high school and he was going to college, and there's like scouts at the game or something, like they were being watched. So it was like, like a big deal to like play well. And that was going to hopefully create something for him for the future, for his career, because that's the trajectory of what he was going to go for. And then he ended up getting injured. And in the moment, he said, besides it being extremely painful, this is what I felt. I felt like devastated because baseball is all that I've ever known. That's my love. That's my outlet. Like I felt like hopeless, scared, um, devastated, and lost, confused. Yeah, negative stuff like that. so, so I said, okay, I know what to do. I've done this before. So I had him close his eyes and I'm like, let's go back in time to the scene of the accident. And I want you to feel those feelings. And then I want you to um, replace them with love, send yourself love and healing, and tell yourself that it's going to be okay. Everything's okay. You will find something else to channel your passions into. Um, and so, yeah, that's what we did. So I think that is it. That is it. Oh, no, it's not. So what I forgot to tell you is, okay, so when you finish doing Reiki, whenever you Reiki someone, you want to disconnect from that person's energy and then clean your energy. So it's a really scientific way that we do it, okay? We literally go like this. So that's a thing that we do, but also, mentally unplugging that cord, disconnecting, and then, taking a shower, washing your hair, envisioning white light coming through the crown of your head, cleaning out your system and your body, asking to be disconnected from the person's energy. All those are ways that we do that. But with that being said, with both people who practice Reiki and mediums and also empaths in general, it's a blessing and a curse. We're able to pick up on other people's energy more easily and more frequently. And I always say, you can become that person in the sense that it's so easy to take not what's yours, and then you take it on and you don't even realize that you're doing it. So that's why and we'll go over this in a different video, important to have strong boundaries, to set boundaries and to make sure that you're not absorbing and holding on to other people's stuff. But it can also show up physically. And in this instance, for me, it did. So right after I worked on him, I have had shoulder injuries in the past because I was a competitive bodybuilder and all things sports, but that's besides the point. So as soon as I wasn't having shoulder pain, then I worked on him, and then I had shoulder. In the time that I do Reiki, in the specific moment, whoever I'm working on, I can feel what's going on in your body. So I had a woman, I worked on her. She was my client. She had a full spinal replacement. So she had a metal spine instead of her actual spine. And when I started working on her, I felt like the most craziest compression ever in my back. So that was one thing. But so anyways, so I didn't have shoulder pain. Then I worked on him. Then I had shoulder pain. And then funny enough, about a week later, I'm dancing of all things, and I threw out my shoulder. So I didn't throw it out. I tore my shoulder again. So coincidence or not, like I said, I don't really believe in that. So these two things were directly related. So I'm going to leave you there today. That is all for my stories or experiences. And check out my other videos if you are interested. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all those things. Oh, and if you are interested in Reiki session or mediumship or tarot, please see the description box below for all that information. And thank you.